Greetings everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm your host Captain Ryan. Today's video comes to us courtesy of Cheapster. Cheapster is playing in the Tier 8 French Baguette, the Charles Martel, here in World of Warships. As the battle gets underway, it's Trap, it's Domination Match Mode. There are only 9 enemy ships that he's playing against. It's a Tier 8 maximum battle. The carriers in the game are woefully outmatched because they are only Tier 6. There are 3 cruisers, and there are no destroyers in this game. And the reason I add all of that information is so that you can be even more impressed at the outcome of this game. It is a very heavily dominated battleship game. With no destroyers, that means less walls of skill for the battleship players to worry about. Now, Cheapster here is headed towards the A cap point. It makes sense. He spawned closest to the A cap point. Additionally, given that there are only 9 enemies that he's facing, it means that it's less likely he's going to run into the entirety of the enemy team. And if he does run into the entirety of the enemy team, well, that means his team can go ahead and take the C cap point and B cap point with relative ease by comparison. And if he doesn't run into it, well, chances are he's going to be able to defend at the A cap point or possibly take the A cap point instead. Important factors to note with the French cruiser line here, of course, as you can see, he's got the speed boost consumable, and that speed boost really does do a lot for the French cruisers. It increases the overall speed, but more importantly, it lasts a lot longer than the destroyer speed boost consumable. I know the Henry at tier 10, boy, I pop that thing, that ship will go 44 knots in a straight line for 5 minutes. Now, the other thing to think about is that these ships also come with torpedoes, and they're not short-range torpedoes like some of the German ships. No, they are 9 kilometers. Not as long as the Japanese or the British, but still quite a bit of range, and they do a decent amount of damage. They're also quite fast. Now, he's got a couple of ships that he's run into at the A cap point. There is a cruiser back over there, and there's a Bismarck back over there, and they have started capping. Cheapster is not alone here. He does have a friendly Alabama that's pushed up here. And this Alabama is unfortunately going to kind of misplay the option here. Mainly, you can see how he's sitting there. He's trying to bow tank. And under normal conditions, I'd say that's not a bad decision, given that it's just a Tier 8 maximum game. And you've got the torpedo protection to cover any potential torpedoes from that cruiser. The problem, of course, is that he's bow tanking against a Bismarck, and that Bismarck is just going to flag you for secondaries and let his secondaries rip you to shreds. Specifically in this game, because there are so few enemy ships, a Bismarck with manual secondaries is a bit of an unfair advantage because it's like taking an extra Tier 6 cruiser with Tier 8 battleship armor into the match with you. But while that Alabama takes the focus of fire from the 2 ships at the A cap point, Cheapster is actually able to continue getting shots off, and he's switching back and forth between the armor piercing and the high explosive here, and he's constantly resetting the base. And this is actually proving to be good because his team has managed to secure the B cap point, and that has got them a bit of a points advantage. Now, the enemy team is challenging the B cap point, so they're not currently gaining points, but they're not actually able to capture it. And since Cheapster's team was able to get that little bit of a points advantage, we're going to see that come into play as the battle progresses. Now, much of this battle is going to take place here at the A cap point, at least for Cheapster. And I'm just going to continue to talk about what's going on with him, but also pay close attention to the minimap here. And if you'd like to get well above a lethal dose of salt, and obviously well above your daily recommended values of salt, feel free to watch the chat here in a few minutes, because it is going to get particularly salty. Cheapster continuing to get shots off. This time he's switched his attention back over to the cruiser there. He's earned himself quite a number of defender ribbons because he kept resetting the cap, but you see that cruiser has left the cap. He's chasing down that Alabama, who again tried to bow tank here and basically just started reversing. Not the best option for him. He should have instead just gone ahead, exposed broadside all ahead, and just turned around and run away. Your ship always goes faster forward than it does in reverse, unless you're a Dunkirk, and in which case you're about the same speed in both directions. But Cheapster is able to get shots out there, but he doesn't actually secure the kill on the cruiser. He hasn't done that much damage here as a tier 8 in this game so far, but he is still holding at the A cap point, and he's still able to get shots off here. Now that Bismarck has decided he's not going to try and chase a French baguette, instead he wants to go ahead and start capping the A cap point. The enemy team has secured the C cap point, and Cheapster's team has managed to push them out of the B cap point. So at the very least, they're getting points. However, Cheapster's team, you can see there, they've lost 3 chips, and the chat has started with the salt. Now, the enemy team isn't that far behind on number of ships lost. They are down 2 ships, but because nobody other than Cheapster's in a position to challenge the A cap point, it kind of looks like the enemy team is going to just be able to take the A cap point, and then they can start gaining even more points. More importantly, if you look at the minimap, you can see pretty much all of his team is currently clustered at the B cap point. So while they can defend the B cap point effectively, the enemy team can basically just pincer move, come in from below, from A, with those shots coming in from the Bismarck there, which is part of the reason why he's shifted away from shooting at Cheapster and is instead shooting the broadsides of the ships at B, and they can come down from the other side at C, which makes the situation for Cheapster's team at B even more difficult. They need to pick a cap to go ahead and push with some support, and right now the best option would be the A cap point, since it's just the Bismarck down here at the moment, at least what they can see. More shots coming in there. That Bismarck not known for the best accuracy with its main battery guns, and now here pops up another ship. Now you can see there, he gets his rear turret off at that Amagi to shoot at it because he's in that cap and he's accumulating a lot of the base capture at this point. Cheapster's been picking on the Bismarck, who has been capping, but you'll notice as he hits that Amagi, he gets a lot more base defender ribbons, knocks that cap progress way back, and he's just using the mobility of the ship here. He's constantly maneuvering, and he's constantly switching back and forth. He's not going to let either of those ships accumulate enough capture progress independently to allow them to secure the A cap point. And you could really argue, as this battle continues to progress, that Cheapster just doing this isn't actually helping his team all that much. Maybe instead he should relocate up to the B cap point and coordinate the efforts there. But I would argue just the exact opposite. He's preventing the enemy team from gaining the A cap point as best he can. Additionally, he's able to get shots off unmolested because those 2 battleships are focusing on the clustering of his teammates at the B cap point. So their attention is divided. Now, Cheapster's team loses yet another ship. And again, that's partly because of their positioning at the B cap point. They're very clustered together, so they're just able to get wrecked from both sides by the enemy. And Cheapster at this point really hasn't taken a lot of damage. And again, that's going to come in as an important factor at the end of the game. But if you look at the damage counter at this point, Cheapster's actually done almost 100,000 damage. He hasn't managed to get a kill yet. And there aren't that many enemies left to kill at this point. There are only 7, and that Amagi looks like he is very, very low health. Cheapster's not able to get the kill on him. That Amagi's able to put the fire out before he burns to death. But look how low health he is. This is where using that F3 key or macro it to your mouse or something would be excellent, because you could just go ahead, flag him as a target, make sure everybody on your team knows that there's a low health, easy to secure kill right there. The enemy team has now lost their Amagi. That's one of their tier 8 battleships, and a very dangerous battleship with its 16-inch guns, especially to the cruisers. Since that Amagi is gone, now again, it's just the Bismarck at the A cap point. And because they were able to kill a ship, Cheapster's team is able to keep those points totals closer together. Now the enemy team's still up on points. Both still have a cap. So the enemy team is going to gain that. But as you can see there, they've stepped onto the B cap yet again. So they're going to start preventing Cheapster's team from gaining points from that cap. And this is where some aggressive play by his teammates would definitely help, because they need to get in there and they need to spot whatever it is that's there and focus them down. But of course, they lose yet another ship, so they're constantly down on ships here. They're down 5 ships to the enemy's 3. And as every single one of these ships gets taken out, that's fewer ships at the B cap point that Bismarck can focus on. And you can see the ships that are there, very, very low health ships on Cheapster's team. And now, the secondaries from that Bismarck are coming in. You'll notice Cheapster goes ahead and he starts ignoring that Bismarck. Why would he do that? Well, the Bismarck's on fire. You can see the damage counter continuing to go up. His teammates have just lost yet another ship at the B cap point. And at this point, you might be thinking, now it looks like it's all over, because there's not much that the team can do, right? Nope. That cruiser at the B cap point gets citadeled by Cheapster. He manages to take him out, actually secures his first kill there, and then secures the kill on the Bismarck, burning him to death. Well, the Bismarck is gone. There's now nobody on the enemy team at the A cap point. And Cheapster has decided to reposition, and now he's going to go ahead and he's going to start focusing down this North Carolina in the B cap point. And he's going to prevent the North Carolina from capping. But you'll notice on the mini-map there, he has a teammate without speaking, and this goes into mini-map awareness, that has gone down there to the A cap point, and that teammate's going to start capping the A cap point, so that at the very least their team can start gaining some points again. Right now, the enemy team still holds the advantage because it's 4 versus 3, and if you see there, well, their third ship over there, well, he's got a lot of health. He's in a very, very bad position. Speaking of very bad position, enemy Mogami pops up here, and he's very low health. It's a tier 8 cruiser. It doesn't have a repair ability because it's not a premium. But look at this, Mogami decides to give broadside. You're in a cruiser facing another cruiser, don't give broadside. But broadside he gives, and meets his end thanks to Cheapster. Managing to take that Mogami out has narrowed the teams again. So now they're down 3-3. But not for very long, because again, if you look at the situation, their third one up there, who had a lot of health going into it, is fighting 2 full-strength ships, albeit one of them is an aircraft carrier. But he's not in a good position, and he doesn't have any backup. Cheapster, on the other hand, is continuing to rain high explosive fire down onto that North Carolina at the cap. And he's continuing to use the maneuverability of the ship and using that speed boost. And that speed boost always throws off battleship aim because they're not expecting you to be traveling that fast. And he's just continuing to rack up the defender ribbons. Look how many defender ribbons he has at this point. Additionally, you'll notice that he's earned himself his Witherer, and he's earned himself a high caliber, plus 170 16,000 damage done. Even if he loses right now, even if he gets taken out, and he could very well get taken out if you look at the situation, he's got 2 battleships shooting at him now. He's got a Queen Elizabeth, and he has that North Carolina to deal with. Well, what do you shoot at? That North Carolina has dropped off detectability. He's still at the B cap point, and he's still capping and getting those cap points. And that Queen Elizabeth is out there who's also low health, so Chiefster is focusing on the Queen Elizabeth. Now he's detected, you can see he's being targeted, and he finds himself in a very bad position. On one hand, he can turn the bow of the ship to the Queen Elizabeth, or he can turn the bow of the ship to the North Carolina. Either way, he's giving broadside to somebody. The other option, he could simply turn the ship around and run the opposite direction. Now he sets that Queen Elizabeth on fire, and now the North Carolina's popped up again. And you can see how much cap he has. He's got a lot of cap points, so these shots here are going to earn even more defense ribbons and reset that cap. They've also managed to set him off again. Chiefster is turning and presenting broadside, but given the speed that the French cruiser's at, and given it's a cruiser and can turn quite quickly, he's going to go ahead and risk that, because it's a 30-second reload for that North Carolina. And those shots come in, they go a little bit high. I think they did hit, but they didn't penetrate the citadel. Those were just in the bow there, so that was lucky for him. But that North Carolina is now broadside on, and Chiefster's actually switched over to the armor piercing. He could be using high explosive because he's able to get shots off, but the armor piercing here is going to do the job, and that North Carolina does not have a lot of health left. And so Chiefster is able to secure the kill there. He's now on 4 kills with a Witherer, an Arsonist, a High Caliber, and a Confederate at over 220,000 damage as the last ship on the enemy team pops up there. This is actually kind of amazing because they were behind in this match and trailing here, and the enemy team suddenly finds themselves unable to deal with a tier 8 Baguette and a very, very low health, as we'll see, other friendly cruiser here. That cruiser, look how much health he's got left. Holy crap, how is he not dead? And unfortunately, because this carrier was tier 6, it looks like he's not got any planes left. They've all been annihilated thanks to, well, the tier 8 cruisers and tier 8 battleships. But look at that high explosive going into that poor carrier, getting citadeled. The question is, who's going to get the kill on here? Can Chiefster do it? Can he secure himself a Kraken unleashed in the game? That carrier's burning in all sorts of places. There's not a lot of health left. Both cruisers are shooting at him. Who's going to get it? Yes, it's Chiefster, earning himself a Kraken Unleashed to finish off the game. 244,000 damage done. But look at the number of base defender ribbons. 82 base defender ribbons. And that's probably going to be a massive factor. Not just capping bases, folks, but defending the bases, preventing them from being capped, is worth the sweet, sweet XP. Look at the amount of XP that he's earned here. 16,000. He's got himself Arsonist, Confederate, Kraken Unleashed, High Caliber. Top of the team for XP earned in a 9 versus 9 matchup. Chiefster has earned himself 3,700 base XP. That's insane. Didn't see that coming. Was surprised at the sheer amount of XP earned. Good job, Chiefster. Excellent battle and very well played. Anyway, that's it for today's video, folks. If you liked the video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment down below. If you'd like to get semi-regular channel news and updates, you can do so by liking and following me on Facebook. If you'd like to help support me and the channel, you can do so by becoming my supporter on Patreon. If you've got a replay like this one that you'd like to see featured on my channel, you can send it to my email. And if you'd like to watch me play various games live, albeit intermittently, you can do so by following me on Twitch. You can find the links for all of those in the video description down below. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.